Welcome to Trial by Wine. We take a closer look at crimes that highlight how fascinating humans can be. Schmitty, Swanny and Clarkey visit crimes and run them through their jury of three, debating both sides of the case to agree an appropriate, if totally fictitious, sentence. Please be advised, Trial by Wine may include explicit or disturbing content and will include drunken rambling. Listener discretion is advised. All right! Welcome back!
Hello.
Hello!
Hello.
How are we?
How are we all?
Warm. Living through a bit of we got a little heat wave where we are.
Are you anywhere near the fires?
Oh, well, I guess the answer is yes and no. I think there's some down south and there's some in the hills. So, no, we're not near it because we're near the beach, but you can certainly see helicopters and smoke and stuff in the very far distance. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not as bad as the ones that we had in February. So, hopefully, this will be as bad as it gets. But, I mean, it's early in the season, isn't it?
And it's hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Clarkey?
Yes. Yeah, we're good. We're just chilling after a full-on Christmas, and by full-on I don't mean by the number of people that we had, but more so by the crazy shenanigans that we had.
The number of presents Santa bought you.
Oh yeah, he just always brings loads here, as you could imagine. Not really, but remember we were talking about collecting back in the day when Schmitty did the doll story, I think it was. And,
Yeah,
totally. Yep.
I was talking about collecting empty wine bottles. I feel like everyone in the street decided to donate some to my collection because our recycling bin is absolutely chock because it's already out in the street, even though it doesn't get picked up for another couple of days just to get it out of sight. So, yeah, it was fun.
Oh, that sounds nice.
How about you, Schmitty?
Cool. I had a lovely family Christmas with my family, basically, and it was just really nice. It was like as you go past childhood, Christmas can become a bit disappointing, and being the single auntie, I always feel ripped off because I give all these presents and I get 4 back. I know that's not the point of Christmas, but it is really. So I find that sometimes a bit annoying, but I did pretty well this year, so I can't complain. And, we just had lots of food. I didn't actually drink that much through Christmas, which was novel but nice.
Surprising.
And, I don't know, I was just tired, so I just don't think and I was probably a bit acidic. So I just didn't want to go too hard on that. And, all this rich food that you're eating and all the rest of it. So, but that was good. And then Boxing Day, Mum and I packed up the car as we have every other year for, I think, 20 years and drove up to Ilden, which is where I am recording from today. And it's been beautiful up here. Haven't been on the houseboat yet because I'm letting my nephew and his girlfriend use it for a couple of days. But then as of tomorrow, we've got Tony and his children and their partners and their children coming up for 3 nights to stay on the boat. So that's going to be an adventure.
How many people's that?
There'll be 8
How many
of us
them are
on the
there? That's
boat.
going to be amazing.
Yeah, that'll be good. So 6
Oh,
adults,
nice.
2 little kids.
That was like one of those maths problems. If I had 2 people on the boat and I was in the house with my mum and Tony and his kids came up, how many people would be on the boat? And Carla, you clearly had no interest in trying to solve that problem.
Nah, straight to what's the
We
answer?
need to tell you the answer. Well played.
That's right.
Correct.
What are we drinking?
Shall I go first? Because I never seem to, but today
Absolutely.
I'm today.
I think you should.
Today, well, I figure it's between Christmas and New Year. I don't have to go and do anything this afternoon, so I can get started. So I'm going to have a glass or a couple of glasses of my favourite rosé, which is called Rameau d'Or, which I believe in French means golden branch, I think. And it's Côte de Provence. And it's one of those rosés that's really, really clear. And hopefully it won't make me too nasally, although I'm pretty sure we'll find out in due course, won't we?
Well, you're taking
but
your
it's very light and
Telfast in
refreshing.
advance?
Yeah, I haven't actually, no, but let's see how I go. I might be on the nasal sprays in very short shrift. What about you guys?
Oh, sorry, we're on a Nightingale Brothers Alpine Cider, which is a local one. So it's made from 100% family-grown apples, and it's from the snow country. So it's quite nice. It's a dry cider. Bit of a change because we've been drinking so much wine according to that empty wine bottle collection. We thought we'd deviate. And you, Schmitty?
Well, in the vein of trying to stay tidy, I'm working my way through lower alcohol wines at the moment, and I am drinking Jacob's Creek Better by Half, which is a rosé, and it's got half the alcohol of a normal rosé. It's a little sweet. It's a very pretty colour, and I'm not sure if I left it in the bar fridge for too long back at home, but it's a little frizzante, which I'm not sure it's meant to be. So I've already had my Hydrodol just in cases. So that's what I'm on. Delish.
I have to say, I was thinking of you in the lead up to Christmas. One of the gifts that I was asked to purchase for a friend's son who's 18 was, sounds a bit odd, but one was a bottle of port, which apparently he liked, which I thought was something that sort of older people would generally like, but also beer. So I went in, I was speaking to a guy in a bottle shop locally, and he was so helpful, but he took me to this wall. And if I'm in a bottle shop, I'm normally just in to grab something to take somewhere, or I order stuff online. But I certainly wouldn't go to like the beer fridge or the mixed drinks fridge. It was unbelievable. And all I could think of was you, Schmidt. It was like, oh my God, the branding is like amazing. And I said to the guy, I can't believe this. I never look. And he said, well, this is what everybody drinks. So I guess because there's so many limitations with alcohol advertising, the branding has to do the work for it.
Yeah.
But there's lots of things that I'd like to see you trying. So I'll go back after Christmas and I'll take some pictures and I'll send you some stuff. Because there was lots of things that I know that I couldn't handle. But I thought, I must get Schmitty and Clarkie or trying some of these things.
They can drink this.
There were loads of different things. The branding was amazing. They could drink this. Oh, God, I'd be sneezing and crazy.
I'm sure that Clarkie and I can take one for the team.
Happy to. Yes.
Oh, I'd really appreciate that. But it was really quite impressive. I realised just how out of the loop I am. Yes.
Yes, we can definitely do that, and we can give you some feedback.
I was just going to give you an update. Last time we were recording, Tony gave me 24 bottles of vodka cruiser. Yeah. I think there are 3 left, but in my defence,
24 bottles of vodka cruiser, 24 bottles of vodka.
In my defence, the nieces and nephews helped out over Christmas. Because they're basically children's alcopops, as you pointed out at the time. And so on Christmas Day, I got a little bit of a helping hand with that case of vodka cruiser. Okay, so shall we remind people who we are?
Sure.
Okay, I'll go first. We ready? I'm Schmitty.
Yep. I'm Swanny.
And I'm Clarkie. And together we are...
Trial by Wine. Beautiful. Okay, are we ready for a story?
Yes. I've got one for us today.
Carla's got a story, so let's crack into it.
All right. No preamble for this one. I think we'll just dive straight in. In terms of sources, it's a story out of the US, and I suspect it was probably very well publicised at the time. So it's being featured on a number of big networks where they've done, little docu-series on it. So some of my sources include forensicfiles.com, ABC News. What else did I use? I used...
Any Lad Bible?
I didn't use Lad Bible. I didn't use Lad Bible, but there is something that I have never heard us reference before, and I kind of don't want to say it up front because it's going to give something away. But have you ever heard of Murderpedia?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Murderpedia. Oh!
I have, yes.
Oh my God, it's
definitely.
so good. Okay, well, there you go. I thought that was going to be the big reveal. But Murderpedia is been fabulous. And I like it's asking you, to make a donation like you do with Wikipedia. It's like, oh, yeah, exactly. Oh, gosh. But, the work involved in trying to make these stories and edit them to the way that they've done them. No, I didn't. I was just reading it. And I was thinking, someone's done a lot of work here. They've done a brilliant job. Because there's a lot to it. And, I think when we look at these stories, there's always these different components to it. And trying to pull it together in a way that sort of gives a bit of a reveal without telling you the whole story up front is where the trick lies. But, Murderpedia, I thought was brilliant. Anyway, there we go. So they're my sources. And our story starts in Springfield. Oh. Springfield, Illinois. And,
is it about The Simpsons?
Before I go any further, our lead character, or there's a couple, is a gentleman called Mark Winger. And guess what Mark's job is in Springfield?
Does he work at
He's a nuclear engineer.
Nuclear plant?
He works in a nuclear plant.
He does! He does!
Yes.
He does. He's a nuclear engineer that works at a nuclear plant. And so that then sent me off checking.
You've made my day.
And it turns out, after, I think, 25 seasons or something, Matt Groening came out and revealed that the Springfield in The Simpsons is actually based on Springfield in Oregon, not Springfield in Illinois.
I was going to say, there are quite a few Springfields, aren't there? There are quite a few Springfields.
Yeah, there are. Yeah. So this one is Springfield, Illinois. And we meet our two main characters, and they're a lovely young couple called Mark and Donnah Winger. And they were married in 1985, and I think it was around this time that Mark was offered this job, which I believe is, somewhat prestigious as a nuclear engineer at a government-operated nuclear plant. And Donnah is...
It sounds very prestigious, except that I've seen The Simpsons before, and I feel like all he does is sits back in his chair and eats donuts and tries to watch things, but doesn't really do a very good job.
I'm not sure that Homer is a graduate with a nuclear engineering degree, but I could be wrong. I think he's more of a technician.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I think Mark Winger is an
representative of the
educated...
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. So...
Right, yes.
So they're a very happy, recently married couple in Springfield, Illinois. So, and Donnah works at the local hospital, and she's an operating room technician. So she's with doctors and surgeons, and she's highly respected and works with obviously the medical industry, and again successful in her own right. And they're a really, they're kind of this lovely young couple that people really put on a pedestal and think, gosh, they've got it all going on. The only thing is that they're unable to have children. So Donnah finds out relatively early in their marriage that it's just not going to happen, and it puts a little bit of pressure on their marriage, but they're certainly trying to find ways of bringing a child into that house. And then being adopted myself, I find this somewhat amazing. But one day at work, Donnah is approached by one of the doctors, and he tells her that he knows of a teenage girl who is pregnant who will be looking to adopt her child. So Donnah goes home and tells Mark, and what do you know? They say yes. And somehow, because I cannot imagine this ever happening in this country, certainly because I've, certainly known people who wanted for a child so very desperately. This seems ludicrous. This actually did happen, but it did. And they did adopt the little girl that this teenager had. And on the 1st of June, 1995, so is that right? 1995, yeah. The Wingers welcomed baby Bailey. And there's actually footage online that you can see.
So...
Yes?
It sounds like the doctor was like some kind of baby dealer, because, if I knew somebody who was adopting a child, I feel like there'd be a whole system you had to go through.
Oh, totally.
You wouldn't just go...
So I'm assuming that this then must have got into the system. I'm assuming that
something.
This went into the system. I don't understand how that works because it's not...
Yeah.
This is the story is not about this. Yeah, but I mean, I just find
He didn't just bring it to work for her to take.
No, she knew from when the teenager was pregnant, and then somehow it was organised. But I just don't think you would do. I don't think that would happen in Australia. I can't imagine that. But anyway, that's not even the story. Can you believe it?
I've got a friend who's got a dozen eggs that they don't want.
Yeah.
I can bring them into work for you if you want, and you can have.
Well, it does sound a bit like that.
That's kind of how I saw that playing out for a
I
minute.
also think that I've made an error because I said that it was in 1985. It was actually 1989. That was my writing. So there you go. It was 6 years from the time they were married to the time they got Bailey, the baby girl. So 6 years of being happily married, put on a pedestal, seen by the local community in Springfield, Illinois, as a really settled, lovely young couple about to do stuff. Their careers are taking off, and then with the arrival of baby Bailey, life is considered to be somewhat perfect for them. As I was saying, there's footage of baby Bailey arriving, and the grandmother, Donna's mother, is filming, and they literally drive up the driveway and a baby is handed over to Donnah and Mark, and it is just beautiful. They're crying, and Donnah is kissing this baby, and she's kissing Mark, and Mark's kissing Donnah on the head, and it is the beginning of a family.
Was
sure.
the baby in a basket? Because, I've got this image of this traditional, little orphan Annie being left in a basket.
Yeah.
Babies being put in a basket and pushed in a river. That was, biblical.
I'm sure she came in a bassinet.
Dropped off by a stork,
But she was actually,
maybe?
in the footage that I saw, she was carried from a car. So I don't know what she was in. She was carried from a car in someone's arms and handed to Donnah. And Donnah said that from the moment that she held Bailey, she knew that it was, it was meant to be. And, my mum would say the same thing, so good on her. It was just a really beautiful moment. And you could see that it was, the beginning of a family. And their lives had...
Was the baby a Trojan horse?
Was the baby a Trojan horse, did you just say?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, yeah. I just feel like you're telling this story of everything going really, really well, and then this baby arrives, and I just feel like maybe it's just trying to find a way to infiltrate that.
Yeah, a whole bunch of angry Greeks came out of the baby later and murdered everyone. Yeah.
Yes, that was where I'm headed with this.
Yes.
You got me.
But only small
and you were
ones.
worried about, that's right,
Very
tiny little ones. Like little Greek borrowers. And you were worried about a reveal, Carla. My God.
We're already there in the first 2 minutes.
See, Schmitty, I can be intuitive too, There's some things that I just
nailed
know
it,
as well.
Paul. Nailed it.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh,
Trojan
goodness.
baby.
Anyway, so that's the whole story. No.
Back to
So
the story.
beautiful little baby Bailey has arrived, and they're just so blissfully happy. And a few months after, so maybe 2.5 months after that, Donnah makes a trip to visit her parents, her mother and her stepfather, in Florida. They're in a place called Hollywood, Florida. And they go down there. And again, I've seen footage of them, and it's just gorgeous. Donnah is in the pool with baby Bailey, and she's this beautiful young mom, beautiful little baby, and you can just tell the grandparents, I think that Bailey was their first grandchild. Everybody's doting. It's this sort of blissful scene where the sun is shining, and this gorgeous family have, pretty much against all odds, had a man come up to them at work and give them a baby. They're much long for a baby. So life is good. So after a few days spent with her parents, Donnah heads home, and to try and help Donnah get home the easiest way, because obviously she's travelling with a young baby, her parents organise for her to have, I guess you would call it an airport car. They might use the word limousine, but it wasn't. It was just a car, but I know Americans use different terminology than we do. But she didn't land in Springfield. She landed in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was actually a 2-hour journey, but it was going to be easier for her to make that commute apparently from St. Louis in a car back to Springfield. So
is she driving or got a driver?
No, she's got a driver. So there's an airport car, a driver is taking her, and that was the idea, that it would be easier for her to be with the baby, look after the baby, and that was why her parents had organised for that. However,
it's just like when we flew back into Stansted, and I was 28 and
that
covered
central London
in
airport.
pustules. Yep. Flew in and I was covered in pustules because I had
chicken pox
for the week that we were in Corsica, and I organised for an airport car, if that's what we're going to call it, to pick me up and drive me 3.5 hours out to Frome, because there was no way I was getting on a train looking like I had Ebola virus. But yes, I digress. So I understand.
Yes. So that was their thinking.
Did the driver say, "No, ma'am, I'm sorry"?
I had told them. I had told them when I rang to organise it that I had chicken pox, that I looked pretty bad,
But I was no longer contagious.
Well, which was a complete fabrication. I wasn't lying. Maybe let's put it down to a language barrier between us and the Corsican doctor, because he didn't speak any English and we didn't speak. Well, Carla spoke a smattering of French, and when she was trying to describe to the doctor what she thought was wrong with me, she actually said poulet pox, which I don't think is the correct translation of chicken pox.
I can't believe I said that, but yes,
it was
I would
really
have.
Funny. And he scribbled something on a piece of paper which got us on the flight and got us back to London. And I got this car, and I'm pretty sure I probably was still contagious. But if you've had it, the guy probably thought I've already had chicken pox. I don't care. It wasn't COVID, let's put it that way.
No.
But yes, I managed to get back to London and get a car. So
And
with my poulet pox.
just to add to that story, the reason Schmitty was in Corsica at the time was for my 30th birthday.
No, that's not when I got. That's not when it was the year before.
Oh God, it is true. I got them all confused because unbelievably
the
for
year
my
after,
30th
that's right.
birthday, after being in Corsica, I got the chicken pox. Of
Exactly
course.
a year
That was
later.
in Sardinia. You're right.
Yep, yeah.
Oh my God, that's
no,
crazy.
it was when we were with your mum.
That's
we were
right.
With your mum, Sandy. Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. There you go.
Don't go to Corsica, you get chicken pox.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Exactly. Corsican poulet pox. Yes.
Poulet pox.
Okay. So she's in the car, and she's going to be in that car for 2 hours. And unfortunately, it was one of those really dreadful rides where the driver was just not up to the job. He started opening up to Donnah, and he was talking about his own issues, his own mental health issues, and he said that he had a voice in his head that he called Damn, and Damn would tell him to do bad things. So basically, Donnah was really uncomfortable. During the 2 hours, he also talked about the fact that he was involved in orgies and that he kind of was hitting on her, and it was just a nightmare. She's this young mum with a baby, just desperate to get home, and she's basically endured this really shitty trip back with a guy who's a bit of a crackpot, total sleazebag, and really just scaring her, and she just wants to get home. And also driving erratically and over the speed limit, so it was harrowing by all accounts. And when she got back to Mark and told Mark about it, he was obviously concerned for her, and they were both deeply upset. And then they settled Bailey, and then a couple of days later they were talking about the drive again, and it was at that point that Mark said, "Look, you've really got to make a complaint." So they called the limousine company to file a complaint, and Harrington, who was the chap's name, he was suspended. And at that time, Mark also urged Donnah to write down in detail what had happened, so that they had on record what Harrington had said to her and what she'd sort of endured during that 2-hour car ride, because it was so bad. Yes.
I feel like Dan, the voice in Harrington's head, isn't going to deal with that complaint very well.
No.
And it's 1989, and not sure that people are going to have the processes in place to protect the complainant, etc., etc. Yep.
It's actually 1995, remember, because I got it wrong. So it was 89 to 95. So this is 1999.
Oh, right.
But honestly,
Still the 90s.
same, no difference.
Yeah.
So this chap is suspended from work because, and actually rightly so, because you can't be doing that. People are paid for a service, that's not right. But I dare say there was no follow-up. That was just the way it was. So that is about 2.5, maybe close to 3 months after Bailey has arrived. Then we jump to 3 months after Bailey has arrived, and on the 29th of August 1995, Mark Winger makes a 911 call to the Springfield Police Department. Yeah.
There's a million little Greek men running around my house. The Trojan baby trick worked.
Right.
Is that what he says?
It's like Alien. They've been breeding in there since she came into the house. They hadn't quite burst out yet. That's why Carla's telling us about all this delay from the time Bailey arrived
So we're only
to when the Greeks exploded.
We're only talking 3 months. So from that glorious time where we see the
Lovely
beautiful
times,
baby arriving,
yeah.
to her visiting her parents, which was probably 2.5 months to, maybe a bit more, maybe 2 months, 3 weeks. We're talking about a really very small window. And now we have Mark Winger desperately calling 911. So August 29, 4:30 in the afternoon, people are returning home from work in this, really lovely suburban area. And we've got Mark Winger calling 911 to report that he'd shot a man who was killing his wife.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. When former Springfield Police Detective Charlie Cox arrived at Winger's home, he remembered they could see the victims from the front door. Donnah was clinging to life. She'd been hit no less than 7 times in the head with a hammer.
Oh, my God.
The second victim, a white man, had suffered 2 gunshot wounds to the head but was still had a pulse when they arrived. It was quite chaotic, Cox said. I knew that they were probably going to be transporting victims soon, so I wanted to try and get identification on that male subject. Cox found the man's wallet and was able to identify him as Roger Harrington. So he was the driver. Yeah. Police recovered a bloodied hammer near the 2 bodies and found Winger's .45 caliber semi-automatic handgun, a yellow mug and a pack of cigarettes on the same dining room table. They also noticed that Harrington's car had been parked against traffic, facing the wrong way. At the crime scene, Cox said Winger was very upset and very emotional, and that he repeatedly asked who the man he'd killed was. Cox avoided identifying Harrington and tried to calm Winger down. So now they calm Winger down a little bit and they go and sit him down. They start asking him what's happened. Winger told police he had been on the treadmill in the basement of the house when he heard a thud, a large thump upstairs. So he gets off the treadmill and he goes up the stairs to investigate. As he walks past the master bedroom in the house, he finds that baby Bailey has been left alone on the bed, and at that moment he knows that's something that Donnah would never do. So he grabs the gun from his nightstand and he proceeds to go into the hallway, at which point he says he sees a white male attacking his wife with a hammer. He then walks in the hallway, sees the gentleman swinging the hammer at him. Winger said he shot Harrington, then immediately shot a second time when he began to sit up. So he said he shot him twice. As police...
double tap.
Yeah. As police combed through the scene, Winger asked police if the intruder's name was Roger. Cox, the detective, or the policeman, confirms that it was. Mark was shocked and was saying, oh my God, that's the man who was harassing my wife this week. And of course, we know that it turns out that indeed had been the driver, the gentleman who had taken Donnah from St. Louis to Springfield, Illinois. So we're at the crime scene. They take the bodies off, and I think very shortly they don't make it to the hospital. They both die.
Oh, shame.
And interestingly, Cox, who was the policeman there, actually was very familiar with Harrington. He dealt with himself. Oh. He said he thought it was very, very believable that Harrington would have snapped. And the reason he said was, I knew him to be very volatile. He and his wife had rented a trailer from me. Knowing what I knew about Mr. Harrington in the past and how quick he was to anger, I thought he was very well could have gone over there and tried to get his job back, and things gone awry. So there's a hammer laying there. He's gone crazy, and he said he could have gone into a rage. So the husband shoots the bad guy. It all made perfect sense. And within 48 hours, the case was closed because it was so obvious that this guy had gone to kill the woman who had reported him, and he'd lost his job. Harrington's family insisted from the outset that their son was harmless. He was no troublemaker. He was a good kid. He wouldn't strike at anybody. But everybody else thought that wasn't necessarily true. And Cox's first-hand interaction with him would suggest that he thought that he could be a real threat, and certainly somebody who could lose their cool and something could go wrong to the point where he was capable of something quite dangerous.
Yeah, so they've just applied Occam's razor. The most obvious, or something, the most logical answer usually is the answer. Yep. Yeah.
So our, darling new mum, Donnah, is dead. I mean, brutally murdered with a hammer. And her poor husband and family are just devastated.
Devo.
Yeah. So in the...
Or are they?
In the following months, Donna's mother and sisters they took turns travelling to Illinois to help take care of baby Bailey. And they loved Mark. You know, they just adored him, and they were there to support him as well. But they also realised they needed to be very, very careful. Because they knew that their relationship with Bailey, and had to always go through Mark. So they, were very respectful of him and trying to help him, but not sort of overstep,
their boundary. Or anything in case he cuts them off from their grandchild. Yep.
In the months following Donna's death, her mother and sisters took turns in travelling from Florida up to Illinois to look after baby Bailey, and they would sort of take turns, so there was always sort of somebody there with Mark. They loved Mark because Mark loved Donnah so much, and they just wanted to support him in any way they could. Obviously, he'd suffered such a huge loss, plus, the trauma of it all. But, they also were mindful that they didn't want to sort of overstep any boundaries, and they just wanted to make sure they were in Bailey's life, but also, they knew that Mark was in charge, and, they were very respectful in that way, in that regard. But over time, I think that they realised it was just too difficult and too big a commitment to always be one of them there. And they suggested to Mark that it was probably time that he hired a nanny. So in January of 96...
Twist, I didn't see that coming. Okay.
In January of 1996, a young girl called Rebecca Simic becomes Bailey's nanny. She was young and beautiful and with a heart of gold.
Just before we get on to that, can I just interrupt and ask, if you were... It just seems odd that Mark would want one of them there the whole time. Don't you think?
No. I think if there was a baby in my house and I would had somebody there who was going to help me and I could go to work, I'd be jumping at the chance. So I think they were just trying to help out. It's just about the baby. It wasn't about Mark. That's all. It's just so he could go to work, and someone just think of it like a babysitting thing. And for them, that's what they were sort of doing. They weren't trying to do anything other than help him get to work and Bailey. Yeah, so I assume that's what it was.
Gotcha. You can't take babies to the nuclear plant, can you?
No.
Well, I don't know. I've seen Maggie there. Doesn't she take an isotope? Well, it's not an isotope, but whatever it is, out and it drops out at the supermarket. I've seen that.
Yeah,
Bailey, Daddy's busy. Just go and play with the warhead.
It said that Rebecca Simic was by all accounts a very good candidate, and she said that she'd interviewed with lots of families, including families who were very wealthy, but that she really could see that poor baby Bailey needed to have a really positive influence, because as she saw it, as Rebecca the nanny saw it, she'd lost 2 mothers in the space of 3 months, and by that obviously she means her birth mother and then her adopted mother, Donnah. So as one of Donna's sisters said, I didn't want to like Rebecca, but it was hard not to like her. Seeing her with Bailey, there was really nothing bad we could say about her. So we're starting to see that they've got this, by all accounts, wonderful nanny who's truly there for Bailey's best interests and trying to really look after the little girl. There's actually a quote here from Rebecca Simic, and she says, "She lost 2 mothers by the time she was 3 months, and yet she was so smiling. I wanted to get in there and say, I'm going to help, and I'm going to make this little girl's life better."
By lost 2 mothers, we mean
the natural mother and adopted mother. Yeah. Just because he's just saying, like, in 3 months, she's already lost, 2 mums. So she really felt for her, and that was why she accepted the position, because I imagine it would be quite tricky. I mean, going and working for a recently, widowed, gentleman who had seen his wife murdered and murdered the perpetrator.
It's like something out of a gothic novel, but
it's pretty awful.
I've only just realised that baby Bailey is a girl and not a boy. That was pretty quick of me.
Or a dog.
Well, or a Trojan.
If you've seen A Dog's Purpose, the dog's name is Bailey.
Oh, yes, that's true, yes. So as this sort of is happening, so in the background, Mark is really seen as a hero by many locals, in the sense that he has this beautiful little baby. He lost his wife. He's had to try and, defend her, and he's killed this crazy guy in doing so. He's received $25,000 from a fund for crime victims, as well as a life insurance policy. And he's written to the local newspaper thanking local residents for their support during his ordeal. So he's
just doing everything.
He's doing it right. That's exactly right. So
I'm on
in the background, that's happening. But he also does think at that point that, you know what? I think I'm going to sue the transportation company, because if it wasn't for them, my daughter would still have her mother, and my wife would still be alive.
But it goes one step too far.
Correct. So there was an investigation started into the Boothel Area Rapid Transportation Company, and he was suing them. So he had to go back to the police, and he was asking them questions. He asked for his gun to be returned, which it was, and he was telling them how he was going to then sue the transportation company. And at that point, there were a couple of conversations between the policemen. They said they felt slightly uncomfortable, and nothing more was done, but they were starting to perhaps harbour some doubts and, just question some of the things that happened. But when they raised it with their superiors, it was kiboshed. So, Mark's busy getting the good word out and trying to get all the money in. And then what do you know? It just so happens that at home, when you live with someone and you're taking care of a child together, it's very easy when you're playing house to fall in love. Mark made me feel like I was an angel sent to him from God or Donnah.
As I said, gothic novel.
And it was my purpose.
Sent to him from God or Donnah.
God or Donnah, very important. And it was my purpose.
They're not on the same level. I feel like you would be able to tell which one.
God. And it was my purpose to make that
Donnah.
family whole again.
Or Donnah. Yeah.
Right.
I always get the two confused.
Just to be clear in terms of time.
Is it God or Donnah?
God or Donnah.
Yeah. Who do I pray to?
It's like lesbian or German. You get photos, and is it God or Donnah?
Oh, that's very good. God, no, Donnah. Definitely Donnah. Oh, no, God.
I'm going to go with God is actually a woman then, if that's the case, because...
Ariana Grande says she is, so I'm sure that's true.
Must be
She'd
then.
know.
So August 95 is when Donnah was murdered. Rebecca Simic starts with Mark Winger in January of 96, and during the course of that year, this relationship starts.
What's the cooling off period?
I would like to know, and I would...
Why would you like to know, Carla?
Well, I'm interested. Not for personal reasons, of course, but
Asking for a friend.
I do wonder if it... I think it definitely has to do with, how someone expired. And
Schmitty, do you know the answer to that? You seem to know a lot in these situations.
I think, as Carla was going to say, it's circumstantial. If you hated your partner, or if in fact you killed them or arranged for them to be killed, the period of time before you start another relationship might be shorter. Just saying. Just
you buy yourself a little bit less time.
Yeah.
So Rebecca Simic said that she saw Winger as a hero in the family's tragic story of Donnah's murder, and that she believed he tried her best to save her. I remember asking him how he could move on so quickly, and he explained to me that when you have a good marriage, it's natural for you to want that again.
That's not
Simic
true.
said Winger had told her he wasn't able to have children. So she said she was very surprised when she found out she was pregnant with his child only months after moving in. Obviously, I wasn't careful.
She would be.
I was kind of in shock.
Hang on, she was surprised.
Yes.
She's got knocked up because he said he couldn't have children.
So she wasn't using any protection because he said he couldn't have children.
Ah.
Right.
Another twist.
Another twist.
Yeah,
Winger, on the other
Is there
hand...
any try before you buy?
Oh, God. Could you imagine what a... Oh, God. Winger, on the other hand, was thrilled, Simic recalled. I felt like it was a victory to him, she said. Mark put pressure on me to marry him and have children with him. Simic said that Winger, this is important, who was Jewish when they met, even started going to church with her. She said he told her they could raise a family in a Christian home. I would be honoured to be your husband and blessed if you were my wife, Winger wrote in a letter to Simic. Winger's rabbi Michael Datz asked him
That's quite unusual.
about his change in faith. And he says that Winger explained, Judaism is just too difficult and unforgiving. Rabbi Datz didn't understand, asking, Mark, I don't know what you're talking about. What do you need forgiveness for? He said Winger didn't respond. So
Dun, dun, dun. Yep.
the couple eloped to Hawaii. We are talking about November 1996. 96. So she started working for him in January.
15 months.
She's
15
pregnant.
months
They're
after
married.
Donnah
Correct.
was killed.
They're married by November.
Well, at least
in-
they'd met. Remember Chloe and Kai?
Oh, true,
had
true, yeah.
Met?
Yeah, they hadn't actually met when they got engaged. That's right.
They were in.
Well, they
yeah,
met,
so-
but not in person. Yeah.
This podcast
Had
is
a-
really progressing.
And also, it's a funny, actually, just to digress for a second, it's funny because we judged them as odd because it was pre-COVID, but I wonder how many people have met virtually through COVID and never met in person and kind of hooked up,
Probably a
virtually.
lot.
Yeah, but
then you're right,
But
it
got
wasn't
them
COVID, so
engaged
hey.
as well.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yep. Sorry, Carla.
No problem at all.
So just coming back to the change of faith, is it like new life, new faith? Is that kind of a
Yeah, I
motto
think
that
so.
goes around? Where you,
I think that he probably
you
thought he
change
had a
your
clean
religion to suit your wife?
slate, and I think that he thought perhaps that within the Jewish faith perhaps he thought that he was going not to be able to be forgived, and if he thought he started a clean slate, and she was clearly a practicing Christian, that if he started a new life with Rebecca and with Bailey and with the child that they were due to have, that he wanted to be doing that under a Christian household.
Well,
And leave the other stuff behind. Start fresh.
Christianity's not that keen on murder either. I mean, I know I'm being very presumptive, but where does Judaism sit on it?
Wouldn't have thought it was particularly well looked at.
Does
I
the
don't
Christian
know.
church recognise Jewish crimes? Like if
Just
he committed the
crimes.
crime whilst he was Jewish, do the Christian church recognise that or go, oh no, that was when you were with the dark side and we know that you're better now?
No,
just think
it'll
he's done it.
recognise it. It's a
Or
mortal
can you
sin.
carry it
doesn't
across?
Totally.
It
It's
carries across. It's a mortal sin. Yeah.
He's just
Yeah,
done
right.
it in this sort of effort to leave behind what he had done. That's all. I don't.
Carry it.
If,
Just
So
carry
it's
it.
not
she
like
had a-
moving from America to Mexico then, where you like.
Honestly, I
won't
think
get
that Rebecca
extradited
could have
back.
been any other religion, and he would have been able to just switch, because I don't think that it was so much that Christianity was important. I think the fresh start.
So
and
he
having
hasn't
new
gone
set
to a
of
safe place at
beliefs.
all.
Well, he thinks
And that's
so.
why they went to Hawaii and not Cancun.
I don't think Judaism would ask for him to be extradited back from the Christian faith.
But I also
Wouldn't
think
they?
it would have helped more
I wouldn't
importantly
know.
with Rebecca. I think if she was, a devout Christian and they wanted to they were going to start a family, and
Yeah.
he was working quite hard to convince her that it was the right thing to do, it wasn't too soon, that he loved her, that she was sent from God. It works better to that narrative. I don't even really think that it's so important that he's given up his Judaism. I think that that's just him going, whatever it was before, for you and for our family and for what we're doing together, let's all do that. And you're Christian, so let's make sure we do it together. We'll do it like that.
Is there a possibility, Carla, and
Yes.
the answer could be no, but is there a possibility also that if he's got this thing that he's decided he needs to be forgiven for, that by cutting off or moving himself away from the community of the the
yes.
Jewish temple,
Yep.
he's removing himself also from people who maybe knew him better than he'd like them to.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because that plays in nicely to what I was about to say. So it's 16
Right.
months. 16 months. So, they were married in November. Now it's December. Winger told I guess she still is his mother-in-law. I guess maybe former mother-in-law now, because she's now married to Rebecca, that he was going to sell the house where Donnah Wiggan had died and buy another one just outside of town. He and Rebecca had started a family of their own and started cutting ties with Donnah's family.
Yeah.
I received a letter from Mark one day saying to me I could not be called Grandma. I wrote him back and I begged
what a
him,
shithead.
please let her call me Grandma. And he said, I'm sorry, there's no way I'm going to allow her to call you Grandma, and that is the way it is. And he basically cut off Donnah's parents from communicating with Bailey.
That's
said,
not okay.
Trick. No.
Bailey's grandparents, so Sarah and Ira, continued to send her birthday cards. She was never given them, I don't think, but they always considered her their granddaughter. They had photographs of her when she was with her mother and as a baby. And the poor grandmother and her sisters, not only did they lose in such horrendous circumstances their daughter, but then their granddaughter was kept from them, and, you know, it just was terribly, terribly sad.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So there we have it. They've become intimate. They are pregnant. They're in love. They're about to have a baby. They're married. And that's all within 16 months of Donnah's death. And her family have now pretty much been cut off. So life goes on. And over the following years, Rebecca and Mark actually have 3 children of their own. So they have a brood of 4. Bailey and her 3 brothers and sisters. And, you know, by all accounts, I think that they've got a pretty nice life. But then in, let me see, February of 1999, so about 3 years later, a lady called Deanne Schultz comes forward. And I haven't mentioned Deanne Schultz before, but Deanne Schultz was actually Donnah Winger's best friend. And Donnah Schultz has been having a little bit of a tricky time over the last, I guess, was it 3.5 years since the murder? And that's because Deanne had been having an affair with Mark Wigger before Deborah was murdered. Correct.
Right.
Now, Deanne and Donnah, I have read somewhere, but I couldn't find it again. I think they worked together, and they were certainly best friends, and there are photographs with Deanne with the baby, and Donnah had no idea, none whatsoever, that was happening. And of course, our dear friend Mark hadn't revealed that little nugget. But basically, 3.5 years after the murders of Donnah Wigger and Roger Harrington, Schultz came forward to the police about the affair she'd had with Winger before Donnah's death. Mark was having a romantic relationship with Deanne, and her Donnah's sisters knew her so well, they kind of considered her like a bit of a de facto sister as well. And they said that was something that they never, ever suspected. I guess they would have mentioned it beforehand, had they? Schultz told police about the incriminating statements Winger had made to her before the murders. Deanne stated... Oh, sorry, Schmitty?
I was just going to ask, did Deanne continue to have a relationship with him after Donnah was killed?
I believe no, but I'm sure that I've read somewhere, and then I cannot find it, that it suggested that they did, but I'm not sure that that's true. And I can't
Just wondering why it took her
reference.
3.5 years to say something. So, yeah.
He.
Oh.
Yes.
Just hang on in
It's
there.
coming.
Okay. Okay.
After the murders, Schultz's life went into a downward spiral, as investigators claim she struggled to make sense of the information she knew. She revealed to investigators that she'd actually attempted suicide several times. So she was having this huge, guilt based on some of the things that Wing had said to her previously. Once Schultz came forward, investigators decided to re-examine the evidence in the case, but to their surprise it was gone. And the reason it was gone was because of his investigation. Remember, he was trying to get money out of the transportation company? So it said that when he'd gone, that some of the evidence had gone to them. The evidence they'd once held from Harrington and Donnah Winger's case had been released to Winger's attorney, who was working on a civil lawsuit against Barch Transportation. Winger filed the suit in an attempt to hold the company accountable for his wife's death, presumably committed by Harrington, who was the company's employee. So that's where all of the evidence had gone. But police re-examined certain aspects of the incident, such as why there weren't signs.
They couldn't get it back?
Yeah, but they did have access to some stuff. So police re-examined certain aspects of the incident, such as why there weren't signs of forced entry into the home and why Harrington might have left potential murder weapons inside the car, including a tyre iron and a knife, but instead used a hammer belonging to the Wingers, which happened to be on the kitchen table.
And why did he leave a packet of cigarettes inside?
Correct. Harrington's car...
Because it sounds like he came up, she opened the door and he smacked her in the head, but clearly that's not true. Yeah.
Harrington's car had also been parked conspicuously in the wrong direction, appearing to indicate Harrington did not try to hide that he was at Winger's home in any way. Detective also discovered Polaroid photos that had been taken by one of the officers first at the scene on that day, and they actually turned out to be really, really important. I think they kind of been overlooked nearly. Because remember, it was all done so quickly. It was like, it was done in self-defence.
Yeah, they just...
this guy's crazy.
Assumption. What do you call it? An unconscious bias, where he just went,
Correct. Yeah.
It's only a matter of time this idiot would have done something like that. I've come across him before. Case closed. Defective detecting.
Absolutely,
Anyway.
detective.
Correct. Rears its ugly head again.
The 3 photos revealed the positions of the bodies before they were rushed to hospital. The images did not fit the story Winger told. Mark Winger had stated that Roger Harrington was kneeling down right next to Deborah Winger's head and he was beating her with a hammer. He stated he had shot him and the man fell backwards so that his feet remained near Donnah's head. In reality, the Polaroid photos showed the exact opposite. Cox said
kneeling down, just, remember our conversation about purchase some time ago. If you're trying to bludgeon someone to death with a hammer, and obviously if you have to get low because you've hit her, she's gone down. I get that.
Ouch.
But surely you get a better swing from standing up and bending over. You'll still get a better swing than you would if you knelt down to hit her.
Yeah.
Just the kneeling down.
He might have done his back.
He might have. Yeah. I hadn't taken that into account. Right. Sorry.
No
Just
worries.
it's just that seems unlikely that he was kneeling down. Let alone that the evidence suggested that, because I think what you're saying is if he'd been shot from a certain direction, he would have been pushed in a certain direction, and he was in the opposite direction. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So this is starting to come to light, and Deanne's also saying
this
that,
is defective detecting, because fucking hell, that's Agatha Christie 101.
But Deanne's little
It
nugget.
feels like there was no detecting.
No, not at all.
Tell us what happened.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good. Okay, case closed.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And so, because if you put yourself in Deanne's shoes, so Deanne says, Mark said to her, it would be easier for us to be together if Donnah just died, and all you'd have to do is come in and find the body. Schultz said she felt at the time that the comments were just crazy talk. So you start to put together, but then...
Crazy talk! It's just crazy talk!
It's the zany adventures.
She's then been murdered. The case has been closed immediately. So it's not like there was any investigation where it would have sort of come out that he...
No one asked her.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
No one... She wasn't
just
even...
done.
So she's literally lurking in the shadows, feeling, utter guilt. She's had an affair with her husband, best friend's husband. Her best friend's now been murdered. There's been no real investigation. So she is, as they say, in a downward
Best to
spiral.
say nothing then.
You can see it happening.
But exactly, Paul. I best not say anything. Anyway, okay, I understand what you're saying,
I've
Carla,
got the key to this
I've
lot.
got an issue. Yeah, I've got an issue with this.
Yeah.
But go on.
Right.
I don't know.
But go on.
Not Deanne.
So at this point...
Do you want to talk about your issue to get it off your chest a little bit, Schmitty, or we're happy to proceed?
Just, she sucks. She sucks.
She sucks.
She sucks. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah.
That'll do.
I'm glad you did that.
I like this. There's It says lead detective Doug Williamson, a member of the Springfield Police Department, who had always harboured doubts about Winger's narrative, now had a second chance to examine evidence.
Oh, hang on a minute.
I like
Who's
that.
this person?
Yeah,
Someone who always thought
exactly
that this didn't work out like that.
Yeah.
Also didn't say anything.
But I
was too busy eating donuts to actually do anything.
But because it was considered such a cut and dry case, they had, I don't know if he was the one who had raised it, but it had been raised once before, I read somewhere, and it was sort of like, no, it's all good, just leave it. But it's one of those things where they all go, oh yes, now that you mention it, I did have some suspicions. And this is quite interesting. After reviewing Winger's 911 call, which picked up the sound of Harrington moaning in pain, and then also talking to a neighbour who had heard gunshots, investigators concluded that Winger hadn't immediately fired his gun twice at Harrington, as he'd claimed, but rather waited 5 minutes between shots.
Oh.
And whilst...
Do you reckon the second shot was after the 911 call?
No, listen. Oh, yes, I do. Because during the 911 call, this is what said. My baby's crying.
Shut
My
up,
baby's
babe.
crying. I've got to go, he told the operator on the 911 tape before hanging up and using the gun the second time to finish off the job. So you're right. He had shot Harrington once. He calls
That's
911.
cold-blooded.
He's talking. Harrington starts moaning in the background. He then uses the ruse of the baby. Oh my God, the baby's crying. The baby's crying. He then goes, and that's why there's that 5 minute gap between the initial shot and the second shot.
My baby cries like a 40-year-old dying man moaning. Like, really?
My baby has a very deep voice.
Yeah.
It's all the durries it smokes.
Babies don't
Shh,
cry
that's
like that.
Shh, Bailey. Shush, Bailey. It's okay.
Yeah,
Daddy's here.
Bailey. I've told you to cry properly.
And this one will shock you. How they missed this, I do not know, but this is... Investigators also turned their attentions towards a note found in Harrington's Oldsmobile. It listed the Winger's address and 4:30, suggesting rather
been
than
called
showing
there.
up unexpected, Harrington was attending a prearranged meeting.
Oh.
Harrington's roommate said they remembered his receiving at least one phone call from Winger.
This is so frustrating.
I know.
Okay.
All they had to do was ask.
All they had to do was their jobs.
Uh-huh.
Mark Winger, I like this is where the Weinhoff, who I think is one of the investigators, they say, as such, there's no way this murder could have happened the way Mark Winger described. Mark Winger had concluded that he wanted to kill his wife. Mm-hmm. Then Roger Harrington happened to be the one who drove Donnah Winger. Mark saw this as a golden opportunity, and he told Deanne that he needed to get that man into his house. And that's exactly what he did. That's all he had to do.
Jesus.
And then how easy was it? And then it was like all shut up shop within,
So can I ask, who did he beat his wife to death with the hammer then?
Yes.
Oh, God's sake. I mean, Donna's sake.
Who else did you think did it? God or Donnah? It's hard to tell
God or
nowadays.
Donna's
God
sake.
or
Someone's sake. But, oh my God.
For fuck's
that's
sake,
awful.
maybe.
Yeah, for fuck's sake. That's better.
I want to know who else you thought might have hit her over the head with a hammer.
Well, no, because I wasn't sure. Harrington sounds like a special person, and I wasn't sure whether or not he'd paid him to do it.
No, I don't think he was that special, actually. I think
Gotcha.
he was definitely suffering from some mental illness, but I don't know that he was as crazy as they allowed it to get away with, obviously. Yeah.
But I wondered whether he'd paid him to do it. It said, come and beat my wife over the head with a hammer.
No, we'll get to that.
And that's...
No, not at all. So interestingly, I was able to find that Deanne Schultz had actually run into Mark Winger, and the quote was, after a chance meeting years later, when Schultz testified, she confronted Winger in the hopes of gathering information and asked him how he lived with himself, and he'd replied that he had found Jesus Christ and was forgiven. She said he warned her that if she ever said anything, they would both be in trouble. Now, I'm making a little bit of a leap here, but given that her surname was Schultz and she was best friends with Deborah, she also may have been Jewish. So she may have been part of that sort of tight-knit community. But it feels as though, we've spoken about this before, that he thought that if he drew a line drew a line in the sand, changed religion, and left everything behind, that he would be forgiven, and he and Rebecca could start a new life with their new children and move on.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And did he say that Jesus had forgiven him?
Yes.
Is that
he
what
had found Jesus Christ and was forgiven, but also made sure he threw a little warning in there for Deanne as well, not to say anything.
Yeah.
So Deanne is literally falling apart.
Yeah, no, look, you can find Jesus Christ, but you've got to really repent to be forgiven. You can't just find Jesus and immediately be forgiven.
Even for double murder, double homicide, would Jesus forgive you for that?
Yes, Jesus is all forgiving, but you have to be truly sorry. That's right, Jesus. But you have to be truly, truly sorry, and not just say you're sorry in an effort to get out of being in trouble. You really have to be very sorry and
You've just got to say it well enough to trick Jesus into thinking that you mean it so that he'll forgive you.
Yeah, but because Jesus is, kind of God, and he's kind of, omnipotent, he's unlikely to get tricked too easily.
You'd think so, because Mark's only conveniently telling Jesus part of the story. It's not like he's then going to his new wife and saying, look, I have to, I need you and Christianity to help me. This is what I really did. How can we make this right? He's just going to Jesus and going, there was this little thing I did or was involved in. How can you help me out there? He's using it for his own advantage, clearly, just as a get out.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, because if he does try it on and he thinks he's convinced Jesus that he's super sorry and Jesus goes, all right, you're forgiven, at what point would he find out that Jesus didn't believe him? Would it be like immediately, or would it be when he got to the pearly gates?
That's when you get to the pearly gates.
When does that happen?
When you die and you go to the pearly gates.
Yeah, right. So he's just
the big reveal.
Thinks he's been forgiven.
Yeah.
But he'll get his comeuppance when he gets to the pearly gates, and Jesus goes, fuck, mate, I didn't fall for that.
Oh. Jesus won't even fall. Jesus won't even meet him. So Peter meets him, and he looks in the book and he says, mate, you're on the way down.
We've got a problem here.
Coming through the gates. Yeah.
We've got a problem here,
You're
Mr. Wiggan.
We've got a problem
here, Mr. Wiggan.
You're not on the VIP
I don't
list.
think we have a room in your name here. Are you sure you've got the right dates?
Yes.
It's like, are you sure?
We're
No,
fully booked, but we do have...
There's something downstairs with your name
I think
on
we
it.
can squeeze you in at our other property.
Yes. It's interesting because we had a booking a little while ago. There was a Donnah, and she's no problem. She's in here. But there certainly wasn't a Mr. and Mrs. booking.
No, Mr. and Mrs. Winger, no. We've got a Donnah Winger here, but no, I don't see a Mark Winger.
She's got the single room.
She does.
That's right. She asked for a single room, so we can't help you.
She was very specific.
Yes.
It's a single room. One bed.
Oh, God.
That's right. That's right. One toothbrush.
I'm glad we got that
one
sorted.
of everything. Yep.
So
okay.
Deanne's...
right, sorry about the digression.
Very good. So Deanne Schultz's testimony, they were, Mark's team were obviously saying that she was unstable. And to be fair, she was, because I think she'd suffered so much in the sense that she was carrying this load on her own. I mean, she had an affair, there is no doubt about that, but I don't think that she ever thought that Mark was going to go and kill her best friend, and obviously then it just got beyond her. And then with him threatening her, it was not till 3.5 years later when she's come forward. So she was granted immunity for her testimony. There was no direct evidence.
What was the threat again?
Just that if she ever said anything, they would both be in trouble. That was just from him, because I don't think that they'd sort of had to do
that's
with
not
each
a
other.
threat, is it?
Well,
that's more like a promise, because a threat would be, if you say anything, I'll kill you.
You don't think he went in hard enough to make the point?
I
just feel like I don't feel like that's enough of a threat to not say anything.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I know. But if she thought that in some way she was complicit and would go to jail as well, then maybe that stopped her saying something until her conscience couldn't deal with it anymore. Which is kind of what I think you're saying, Carla.
Like she had an affair. She didn't murder.
No. But because of
technically,
her,
I mean, if you'd gone to the police and said immediately this guy did this, you know, you're you're going to get a plea deal anyway. You're like, even if you are complicit, you're still going to be
Yeah,
able to
I'm just a bit
plea out.
uncomfortable with her saying nothing.
oh yes, I take your point.
basis
No,
I
of
told
you're
you,
totally
she
right.
sucks.
I feel
She should not have
I
done
told
that.
you, she sucks.
But what it helped to
She
prove was
sucks.
that Mark was obviously unhappy,
she did.
unfaithful, and he had talked about wanting to kill his wife. So all of that helped rather a great deal. And she was a valuable witness because she was able to relate to presenting, you know, a motive to actually why someone would want to kill Donnah. So again, that was back in February
Actually,
of 19...
that was my question though. Why did he want to kill Donnah? They presented, you know, originally as this very happy couple. What was the reason?
I don't know, and it doesn't say anywhere because he's never admitted to it.
He's banging Deanne, so he's
But it's not like he went to bang Deanne afterwards. Do you know what I mean? That was just, well, you know.
It's not like he couldn't have divorced her. So I don't understand why he decided she had to die.
But this is a common theme where people, they get unhappy and then they murder their partner rather than leaving them, and then they find Jesus and Jesus forgives them.
No, he doesn't.
But I think we've all just established that Jesus doesn't really forgive them. They just think he does, but he calls them out at an appropriate time. I just wish he'd call them out a bit earlier. He is a tricksy Jesus.
Now, this is quite interesting. So that was at the beginning of 1999. And then it's not until December of 1999 that Mark Winger is seen as a suspect. So all of this research is sort of happening in the background. I don't know why it takes quite so long. But February to December, can you believe that? So in December 1999...
Is that defective detective or is it really thorough detective?
I don't know what on earth has gone on in Springfield, but I tell you what, I wouldn't want to have something awful happen to you there. It does seem rather...
maybe it's sloth detective.
Very sloppy work, I'll give you that much.
I'm on a break.
I just googled it, and there's a new Krispy Kremes was set up.
I'm going to look into this.
So, more than 4 years after the murders, the Springfield State Journal-Register ran an article based on allegations in a civil lawsuit that Winger had arranged that murdered himself and killed both his wife and Harrington. The allegations were based on a blood spatter that says, not splatter.
Spatter.
Blood spatter.
It
is
is
that right?
spatter.
Is it?
Yes,
That
I
that's
didn't know
correct.
that. I just
Correct.
learned
Yeah.
it. Blood spatter expert hired by the Bart Transportation. Remember, they were the company that he was trying to get money out of.
Bart Simpson.
Yeah. No, again, another reference. Oh my God, no. Remember we talked about the transportation
Every time I
company?
hear Springfield, I hear the theme song.
Oh God.
Exactly.
And here we have...
Carla, you must have missed the Law and Order spatter versus splatter
Module, the
tutorial.
I think I haven't...
Module, yes.
Oh no, maybe it's to come.
That unit.
You're probably hungover.
Cert 2, is it? It's probably
Was it
Cert
Cert
1,
three?
that. Spatter, probably that's very basic. I need to go
It's
and...
pretty basic.
I need to get
I
back to
bet
my
you were
glossary and
hungover.
go that through my
Spent,
terminology of my Law and Order, the Law and Order Academy.
It's pretty basic in terms of forensics, yeah.
So
Anyway, sorry.
Rebecca, who is his wife, remember she was the nanny who moved in to look after Bailey. So she has totally been oblivious to all of this. So she says everything came to a head. It changed everything. I mean, it went from Winger as the hero who was defending his wife, this noble stand-up guy that every man wanted to pat on the back, to a manipulative, deviant murderer. So she honestly thinks that he had nothing to do with it. Never crossed her mind.
I love
Conveniently.
I love the use of the word deviant there, because like devious, I'd go with. Deviant just sounds like, you know, they had a bit of deviant fun in the bedroom and it was fine until she realised he was a murderer.
Yes.
And now he's a...
Well, they were Rebecca Search's words.
Yeah, I think. I mean,
tell us, Schmitty.
well, she lived with him.
Devious
right?
and deviant are not the same thing, are they?
No, I wasn't going down the path around the semantics of the words. I was just thinking about why she didn't pick up on it, which is just she lived with him, and you know, I think you said, Carla, she fell in love with him or whatever, and he obviously didn't show any signs of wanting to kill anyone else or talking about it, so she just didn't even occur to her.
Look, his children really loved him.
Two's enough.
I don't know that. I'm not saying that he was a good father or not, but I certainly get the impression that his children thought he was amazing. So in the stuff that I've done when he's taken away, they were totally the rug was pulled out from it.
Horrified,
They didn't know this was coming. I'm sure he was a master manipulator by any account.
Jesus fell for it.
So as a detective...
What was that?
Oh, sorry, Donnah.
Jesus didn't fall for it.
JC.
Yeah, the kids fell for it, but Jesus didn't.
Not Jesus, no.
What would Jesus do? Well, not fall for
I wish we could skip forward a few years and actually get footage of that interaction. That'd be great.
As the detectives continued their re-investigation, they learned that Harrington's roommate, a lady called Susan Collins, had initially told police. So remember, this is back initially when it had all gone down, that someone had asked to meet Harrington on the day of the murders, and that she'd seen Harrington on the phone arranging that meeting. Remember, inside Harrington's car, they found a note written on a bank deposit slip with Mark Winger's name, his address, and the time to be there. It's just disgusting that was, just ignored. There's no other word for ignored. Roger Harrington was not an intruder.
The whole 48-hour open and shut case is disgusting.
Precisely. He was not an intruder.
Maybe it was just Sloth Detective, though, and he was still looking into it. It was just taking a long, long time. And so Sloth Detective is still looking into it, but everyone else has moved on and closed it out. Well, he's going, no.
There's a difference between being slow and a difference between ignoring something, though, don't you think? They've chosen to ignore things.
No, but it might have been on his to-do list.
It's not even that it's slow to the point. They just went, that's not relevant. The name of the guy who's just killed him.
No, but maybe Sloth Detective was
that can't be brilliant.
Still looking into it, but everyone else went, too slow. We're in a fast-paced world nowadays.
Yeah,
Sloth.
so Roger Harrington was...
Carla's not having it. Carla
Sloth.
thinks defective detecting, and I tend to...
No, she's not having a bar of
it.
No.
I just think it really is. I just
feel like if you were a sloth and you were a detective... It'd be really hard to do it in this fast-paced world. It'd just be really challenging.
I think it's hard to be a sloth.
That's a
very valid point you made. Yeah. If you were a sloth in a detective,
you'd still be taking notes of.
The current
but
world.
There was a note in the car. Crime solved. Damn it.
But this, honestly, it's played out like a crime in Springfield, like The Simpsons. Oh yeah, all done. Never mind.
It totally has, hasn't it?
Totally. It's like
Chief Wiggan.
Chief Wiggan.
Chief Wiggan. Absolutely.
You couldn't be. Oh God. Oh.
I think you've called that. That's perfect. Yes, Chief Wiggan.
Oh God. So Roger Harrington was not an intruder, but rather he was lured into the home by Mark Winger. Simic said, "I didn't know that this whole investigation was brewing. I never thought the whole time that they thought my husband was a diabolical murderer." She likes the big words now that she's discovered that diabolical and deviant.
He was a deviant.
Now she's going all out now. It's like, I didn't know he was a diabolical murderer. I just thought he was a, vanilla murderer.
Bog standard murderer. That's right. Just your average garden variety murderer.
So we jump forward to 2001, August, and a grand jury quickly returned an indictment against Winger for the murders of Harrington and Donnah Winger, his wife. A warrant was issued for his arrest. At that point...
Hang on. Did they quickly indicted him?
Yeah, quickly after all those years, correct.
It's like...
There's nothing quick about it, right?
Yeah, it's like that when they need to make a decision, they're super quick.
The jury were like, come on, quick swap.
But then if they've got to do some investigating...
Choppy chop.
Yeah.
Choppy chop.
It's decision time.
Yeah.
We don't have all day. None of this sloth behaviour. Come on.
That's right.
What I thought was interesting, though, so he's arrested, but there's his wife's sisters, I don't think that they really thought it was him. They hadn't made that leap at any point. And when they were asked about it, they were like, well, we loved him. He was our, part of our family. He loved our sister. We didn't want that to be the outcome. And I think, they obviously were hoodwinked, but they weren't thinking, go and get him. And when I read that, I was kind of surprised because I think I'd be the person who'd be like, go after him. It's him. And they just weren't like that. I still wanted to believe he was innocent, she said. That's one of the sisters. Here's this person that I know in handcuffs, and what's going to happen? I think they also felt for little baby, well, she's not such a baby anymore, little girl Bailey. But isn't that, I find that quite remarkable that that's their sort of view.
But it's again,
I found out
quite out
today
of character.
that Bailey's has a use-by date.
What was that, Clarkie?
Does it?
I found out that Bailey's has a use-by date. Apparently, once you open it, you're supposed to keep it refrigerated.
I'd have to ask my mum.
Did you find out?
Sorry,
Did you find out the bad way? Did you find out the bad way by trying to drink?
No,
it
I found out the
Bailey's?
good way, and
Right.
I still don't think it does have a use-by date, despite the fact that it says that. I think you can leave it on the bench for years
Months,
and still
years.
drink it.
I have never
But, you know, what would
refrigerated
I
it.
know?
Yeah. Anyway, we digress.
Yeah.
So
Again.
Carla.
So the trial doesn't begin, because I know
Yeah.
we've got to really drag our heels on this. So now we jump ahead to May 2002.
Well, we're doing our best to drag our heels on the story at this point too. Anyway.
But I mean,
I think I broke one of my heels too, and I'm still
you're still ahead of the game with these lot. So in May
still dragging.
2002, his trial begins. And this is what one of the sisters said. The sister hadn't seen Rebecca for a long time, you know, the new wife. The first time I saw Rebecca was at the trial. I wanted to love Rebecca. She adored Bailey. But I also wanted to hate Rebecca because Rebecca took my sister's husband, married him, adopted her child, and then had 3 more children that my sister wasn't able to have.
Stole
That
her
feels
life,
more
stole
like the
Donna's
kind of
life.
response I was expecting a little bit earlier. I mean, they seem to give this pair...
But she
a fair bit
didn't
of
do
time.
it. She didn't do it on purpose.
No.
Like she didn't know he was a
Is
killer.
it-
It's not like it was all premeditated.
No, not at all.
anyway.
She wasn't there. She wasn't there for that. But,
When-
you know, it's that thing of going...
When you say 3 children, is it 3 murderers or 3 deviants or 3...
Diabolical
Diabolical.
What was
murder.
the other D word?
Diabolical.
Diabolicals? Like, would you then look at them and think there's just a ticking time bomb, or would you go, no, they're fine?
Yeah, I tell you what, they'll grow up to be delinquents.
No,
another
apparently
D word.
not.
Yeah.
I know where they are, and I think, well, they may well do that,
Oh.
but I think JC has a sort of a very calming hand around
Strong
it.
hold.
Yeah, he does.
Right.
He does. So they're pretty
Good
happy.
on you, JC.
Good on you, JC.
JC.
Because
Hey,
Hey.
JC, you're all right by me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, he might do that until the pearly gates, and then he might just go, haha, I didn't fall for that either.
I don't know if JC's that diabolical. If they're good kids, they're good kids.
He doesn't dish out instant karma, does he?
Oh, no.
No, he
Well,
doesn't.
not often.
No, it takes his time. You've got your whole life to repent properly, is the point. But if you don't, well, you've got eternity to feel sorry for that. Bum, bum, bum!
Yes. Yes.
So I think we've covered most of, you know, the evidence and where it was sort of found and how
Okay.
how everything he said was untrue. The bodies were, you know, they didn't marry up with where he said they were. We knew that Roger's car was outside, parked as if it wasn't, you know, if anyone could notice it. He left what would be a weapon, including a knife, in his car. He took a coffee mug in with him with drink in it and ciggies in to commit this murder, and then happened to use a hammer that was at the house. So, like, all this stuff was suggesting that, you know, it wasn't a premeditated murder.
didn't
He
do
was
it.
just a
Oh.
victim, like
Yeah.
his like Deborah.
I'd want to get the most out of my coffee before I murdered someone.
You take your durries in with your coffee, love, and go.
Have a little
Oh,
dark,
Yeah.
calm
Yeah.
your
Oh,
nerves
don't mind
before you do the
me.
killing.
Don't mind me.
Yeah.
I'm keep the edge off this.
I'm only
You've done this before, love. It's very
halfway
stressful.
through my latte. I'm not leaving that in the car. I'm going to take it with me.
They cost a fortune. You're going to finish it. That's right. Oh,
Well,
right.
they're just delicious.
So
Oh,
you're
okay.
like this
So-
after a very short trial. So after all of these years, the trial only lasted 3 weeks, and the jury found Wiggan guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder.
good.
Rebecca Sivich
Oh, they're
said
a
she
good
believed
jury.
he would have been going home with them. After hearing the verdict, she said the words guilty rang through her head, and that she wanted the earth to open up and swallow me. Again, I find her...
She thought he was going. She thought he was innocent.
Well, this is what I find difficult
Yeah.
to get my head around. In one breath, she's saying, "Oh, they're saying my husband is a diabolical murderer. I didn't realise this." And then all of a sudden, they're saying he's guilty, and she's like, "Oh, they've found him guilty." It's like, well, did you believe it or not? I mean, I'm a bit sort of, I wouldn't say I'm off her, but there are things about sort of the way she's chosen to view the whole situation. Perhaps she was blinded by the fact that, you know, perhaps he was a good dad, and she had, you know, by this point, 4 children because of Bailey and the 3 brothers and sisters that they bore. But Or is that the right word? Oh, that sounded a bit wrong.
Maybe he was just very two-faced. And
for
maybe
sure.
he tricked her like he tricked JC, but he didn't
obviously.
really trick JC.
He didn't trick JC. JC's going to get him. But yeah, no, he obviously is incredibly
Kind of
manipulative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this is quite good to hear. I think we all need to hear this from the defective detective side. So Helen Harrington, who was Roger's mother, she was relieved and grateful her son had been vindicated of Donnah's murder. We knew that Roger was innocent, and it finally got proven, she said. He was branded a murderer at the time, but all of this has come to an end. The police had come to terms with the faulty initial investigation. I was ashamed of the way the investigation went, Cox said. I hurt Roger Harrington's family. I ran his name through hell for no reason. I mean, he was an innocent victim. The police department had too hastily closed the case and turned a blind eye to some red flags. And to right such a wrong, it felt great. So there you go.
Now, was that guy the lead investigator
At
in
the
the
time,
first
Cox was.
investigation?
Cox was the one who had said that he knew of him.
Who said, I've met him before,
I've
and
rented
he's
it
likely
to
to
him.
do
I've
it,
leased the caravan or trailer, whatever, to him. I've seen him, give his then wife, a hard time. So the guy was not, without a bit of a record as such, but there was no investigation as we can see. It was just like we just ignore all the red flags. Well, let's call the red flags evidence for the sake of this conversation.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
I hate it when evidence gets in the way of a good story.
exactly, we don't
Well, at least
need
he
that.
didn't keep... The one thing about that is at least he didn't turn around and say, no, we were fine and this other stuff came up later. Like, he admits that he got it all wrong.
Yeah,
That's something.
I think that's important.
Not great, but there are a lot of
Given-
people who won't admit in that situation. They'll just keep sticking to their guns.
So on August 1...
If you were a detective, though, evidence would make your job a lot harder, wouldn't it?
Oh,
I think this evidence would have
Like,
made
you
your
could
job
just sit
pretty
back
easy.
in your-
I can't think of a
no,
situation... This
I'm
evidence
with
seemed to...
you,
It
Carla.
really did point to him
Wouldn't have
being
been
on...
hard.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been hard to actually pinpoint the correct murderer at the outset.
No, but harder. It would have been harder than just making it up.
Yeah. But when they started to put it together... I have read on Murderpedia. I didn't read it in the other sources that I had, and I don't know who to believe. But Murderpedia said that Mark Winger actually called and wanted to speak to Roger Harrington after he had harassed his wife. You know, the journey from St. Louis to Springfield.
Yeah.
I can't find proof of
Yeah.
this anywhere else, but in Murderpedia, it says that between the time that they got back and obviously the murder, he had called, and it was very unusual because he kept saying to the operator, I personally want to speak to the driver. I don't think that they'd let you do that, but he was really trying to find him. So all of these things point towards the fact that, Mark Winger was desperately trying to get hold of this man because he found the foils. Like, I just got to get this guy in my house and he can be my
Perfect
cover.
patsy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So on August 1, 2002, Mark Winger was
Perfect
sentenced
patsy.
to life in prison with no parole for the murder of his wife and Harrington. To this day, Winger maintains his innocence.
Oh, piss off.
So there are two things I'd like to add to this before we go to sentencing.
Piss
One
off.
of them is this is Mark Winger, right? In 2005, so he's in jail, Mark Winger was implicated in a murder-for-hire plot. He likes that kind of thing, doesn't he? Where he allegedly tried to put a
his
hit
MO.
on
Yeah.
Deanne Schultz. So he's the woman that he had the affair with, and the person who obviously had come to the police and really was the one that got the
The one who got him
investigations
put
done.
away,
Correct.
really. Yep.
And a childhood friend who refused to pay bail. Now, when I cross-referenced this, I was able to find it somewhere else, and it said that back in 2001, when he was indicted and arrested, he was held on bail for $10 million. So he asked his old friend Jeffrey Gelman to put up the money. He was a successful Floridian real estate developer, but he declined. So that was kind of the only comment I could find. But poor old Jeffrey and Deanne are the two that he was trying to put a hit on from jail and got caught. So he was tried and convicted again, this time for the solicitation of murder, and he was sentenced to another 35 years in prison. Hello?
Another 35 years in prison.
Yeah. This guy is just...
He's going to go to the pearly white gates once he dies, and Jesus is going to say, hang on a minute, mate, or what's his name who stands at the gates? St. Peter. He's going to say, hang on a minute, mate, you've got another 35 years to go. Go back, and then we'll talk.
Oh, God. So...
Oh, God.
Bailey, who was a little girl, or the baby at the time, she has since been reunited...
And also a delicious alcoholic
with Donna's
beverage.
family, because remember, they just sort of cut them off. And it's really lovely, actually. She wrote, it was so incredible to see that there's this whole big family that loves me. And Sarah Jane, who was Donna's mother, has my baby picture on her kitchen counter with all her other grandkids, even though we've been gone for so long. So I think that's nice for us to know, that Bailey has been reunited with Donna's family. And so you know where Rebecca Simic is, and all the kids, which includes Bailey and the other 3 kids. As soon as he was sentenced to life imprisonment, her brother took her and they left Springfield forever. They never returned. And
what did you say? Where did they leave?
They left Springfield.
Springfield.
Springfield. They left where they lived. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
They left.
Every time you say Springfield, this is what goes through my head. I feel like this is the soundtrack to the detective's life as well. Sorry, I always digress.
That's all right. It's your job. That's what we're here for, to digress.
continue.
Otherwise, people could read it for themselves online. It's about the digression.
That's
It's very true. So I found in my research an article called, the source is Southeast Outlook. And if I understand it correctly, I'm a little bit confused, but it's definitely a Christian website. And I don't know if they talk about a campus, and I don't know if it's because the church is so big or if it's part of a university, but I believe it's in Indiana. And the article's called Wife Finds New Life After Husband's Murder Conviction. And basically, there's a photograph of Rebecca with her now 4 grown-up children. You know, they're sort of teenagers. And it just basically says that she left, and with the help of God and their close church family, they've been able to have some degree of anonymity. And that her test was obviously her faith was tested. But, you know, that with Jesus helping her and putting a guiding hand on her children, they're all happy. I don't think life's been easy, but they do think that they live a complete life, and they seem pretty happy. So I don't know. There you go. Sometimes
do you reckon?
Maybe it was all his plan.
JC helps her out more than other people if, given that she was married to what's his name, who thinks that he's gotten away with it?
She thinks she played a role.
Or
She
if he
thinks
just treats
God put
everyone
her there.
equally?
She thinks, and I said this early on, but this comes back in the article, which is really not related to the earlier stuff. She said, so that's Rebecca, said that Bailey is the reason she became part of the Wiggan family in the first place. She believed God was calling her to care for the infant, and she had no idea what events would unfold in the future. That she adopted Bailey after her marriage to Wiggan cemented their relationship and gave her full rights to Bailey as her adoptive mother, which must be quite tricky for Donna's family. Thinking about how the events turned out helps give Simic faith that she can trust God despite her doubts, fears and confusion. Now, when she believes God is asking her to do something that does not make sense, she makes a choice to put her doubts aside and trust him. And that's how they get by. I think that's how it works for them.
Yeah. It's all relative, isn't it? Because I feel like Donna's family wouldn't think that God's put her in that space. They'd be going, get out, we'll happily look after
Yes,
Bailey.
I think you might be right there. I suspect that... I don't think that they think
Yes,
Rebecca
but
has
they've got
probably
different-
done a bad job,
different
and she's with her
gods.
siblings. Well, it's not even that,
The
I
same
don't think. I think
God,
that
but-
the different gods really doesn't help a great deal. But I think that they recognise that Rebecca really was a good mother to Bailey, and because she's got 3 other children, Bailey is part of a family unit. I suspect that as long as they can see Bailey, Whilst it probably isn't
Yeah.
what their ideal would have been, it probably is about as good as it's going to get for them if they can look at it somewhat, objectively and see that it's
Sensibly,
that Bailey is happy.
objectively,
Yeah. So that's it. That is Mark Winger, who, by all accounts, I saw there was one really great headline which read, at the beginning of something, saying, how much of a catch? Mark Winger, no great catch. And it says, if I ever brought a guy like Mark Winger home to meet my parents, they would have died of ecstasy. A nuclear engineer for the state of Illinois. I can hear my mother saying in awe, a graduate degree and solid job would be a nice parcel of news to relay to my extended family. And it's true. I think that he presented as this, stand-up, well-educated, good guy, nice husband, wanted a child, was finding it difficult, they got the child. And that whole dream, it was crushed. And he continued to behave badly, which always, always helps sort of put the nail in the coffin when he just continues to be naughty and maintain his innocence. But there you have it. So, now, how would you like to sentence Mark Winger?
All right. We hope you're enjoying the show. We are a completely independent podcast and we want as many people to hear us as possible. We need your help. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow us on Facebook at Trial by Wine, where we share our updates, and contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. We can't thank you enough for your support. Now, back to the show. I'm just going to say, for those people who don't live in Australia and don't recognise the screeching behind Paul and Stuart, I think that's a cockatoo. That's one of our lovely native birds.
Yeah, they're out the front.
Or is it a
Some
galah?
cockatoos or galahs. So all that screeching and high-pitched noise. No, it's okay. I'm just letting the listeners know what that all was because we haven't commented on it. And I kept putting my window up and down thinking, is that around me? Because I'm out in the country as well. And then I'm like, no, it's not me.
We did sit them down last night and say, look, we're doing a bit of podcasting. Do you mind just not being around at this time?
It's very galarish,
but they're not interested.
Not all of them.
And they said, we're happy to work with you, but we cannot work around, dusk or dawn because we're really quite active at that point.
Yes.
Exactly. And
It's
you
our
have all
peak
the delicious snacks in your trees that we just have to come and visit.
Yeah.
And all our windows are shut.
Yeah, no, it's all good. So, Paul, sorry, there are two crimes. The murders, and what was the other crime?
The solicitation to...
The plotting to murder.
the guy who didn't put his...
The later on.
His two old friends, one who he had the affair with and one who wouldn't put up the bail.
10
bit
million
rich,
bucks.
isn't
Yeah.
Call yourself a
Do
friend.
it for me or I'll kill you. Now, there's a real threat.
Yeah, I'm going to put a hit on you.
Yeah, God.
Yeah, but
That's
we all know
right.
he doesn't have any money to pay for it because his mate won't give him 10 million. All right, well, until you're through that other... I reckon my sentence will hold for all of his crimes.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear my sentence? Shall I go first, Paul?
Oh, yes, please.
I would
Right.
love to hear you. Yeah, please do.
So I'm going to remind everyone, in case we've forgotten, that at the very beginning of this story, Mark said that he was down in a basement on a treadmill. Or was it a bike? It was a treadmill, I thought.
Yeah, that's right.
He heard a thump, and he ran upstairs
Yeah.
and found his wife being murdered. So he pulled the gun out and killed this person. So my sentence for Mark is for him to be put on a treadmill that he has to just walk on for the rest of his days. Every day, every night, just keep walking on that treadmill and get nowhere.
Oh.
That's my sentence.
What shoes is he wearing?
What, maybe some of those, remember those horrible, some people might have thought they were good, but they were like shiatsu sandals that stuck up in your feet and were really uncomfortable. Do you remember those?
Yes.
They were like,
Yeah.
yeah, masseur things, and they had like
Or what a...
Masseur
I
thongs.
do.
I remember getting them as a Christmas present because they were in, everybody wanted them, yeah. massage.
I
Masseur.
thought
What
they were very
about some
uncomfortable.
nice new leather shoes that actually don't quite fit properly, so he gets real blisters on his feet?
Well, maybe what we could do
Yeah.
is make it a public service thing where he's actually required to break people's shoes in. So every day he's got to walk in some new leather shoes.
Yeah.
And then we give them to the people so they don't have any pain. And then he's got to break in another pair, etc., etc. So he's constantly walking and breaking in new shoes.
What a lovely service
That's
is that would get the local murderer to stretch your shoes. Not sure that I'd be
Yeah.
lining
Well,
up for
let's-
that.
Well, if he's got all that time, what they should do is take all the shoes from the shop
Time?
down to
The
him
cop shop that
first.
had the time. They got all the time in the
Well,
world that
yeah.
night.
The sloth shop.
But he's also got the
The sloth shop.
35, the sloth shop. He's got the 35 years also on top of his
Yeah.
life sentence because he's a dick. So
Yeah.
what we do is we get the shoemakers to take the shoes straight to him and then sell them so no one knows that a murderer broke them in for you first. And then they can be sold as like the most comfortable shoes ever. You don't even have to break them in.
Do you know what really upsets me about this crime? Is
Tell me.
I think that perhaps being able to shoot someone is this sort of action of you pull the trigger, it's gone, it's done. But to slay your own wife with a hammer and hit her in the head no less than 7 times, that's really
indicates that
fucked up, isn't it? That's really
It's very
brutal.
personal. It's very personal, and it indicates to me a lot of rage, and that's why I
Yes.
asked what the motivation to murder his wife was.
Doesn't seem
what
to be
was
enough,
that
does
made
it?
him- Well, did you hate your wife so much that you'll bash her over the head with a hammer 7 times?
Yeah. And it's not like he or anyone ever came out and said a word against Donnah. It's not like they came out and went, oh, actually, it turns out that she had been,
She was
you know,
a crack
abusive
whore
or
something.
she'd done this, done that.
Yeah.
He didn't. Nobody did.
She was a
He didn't even come
crack
out and say she was. It was unworkable. It was untenable. I had to just, I had to put an end to it with a hammer. I mean, fuck.
I know.
Yeah.
And also, it's all so premeditated that it's
Yes.
so cold-blooded. It's not like a moment of passion where I just grabbed a hammer and smacked her once and she
Yeah.
died.
Totally.
It's a total premeditation. It is. It's really shocking. It's awful.
No, I really struggle. And
right.
as a result of that, I think I really struggle with some sort of comedic sentence because for me, it's just, I spent a
I
couple
don't
of weeks
think
looking.
being
I
on
don't
a
know what to
treadmill
say.
breaking in leather shoes is comedic.
Sorry, darling. Not at all.
I wouldn't-
It's hard work. I wouldn't want to do it either. Only recently
No, but
I'd
it
been
is a
out and I
community
can't wait.
service.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to pay back to the society.
Oh, you're
that
good
he's
like
robbed
that.
from.
You're so good like that.
I am. I am.
He's
I do my best.
tenanting for JC.
Did you used to have sandals when you were in primary school, like state primary school? We used to call them JCs because they were Jesus Christ sandals. Did you have those?
No. Well,
Did
we
you
had
wear sandals
but
to
we never
school?
called- Yeah, but we didn't call them
Brown
JCs.
leather with like a sort of a woven front part and then like a strap around the ankle. We called them JCs
Yes.
in Wollongong
Yeah,
or New
we
South
didn't.
Wales.
We didn't,
JCs.
but I can
Is it-
I can see that they're Jesus sandals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
JCs.
Reminds me of a Catherine Tate skit with Lauren.
Yeah.
You got a friend
With
in
who?
Jesus, miss.
Oh.
Is the Lord your shepherd? Lauren. The teacher comes into school and she's got a,
Am I
a
bothered?
white,
Am
nice
I
flowing
bothered?
dress on and
Am I
sandals.
bothered?
Face bothered,
and
not bothered.
And that's her, but she starts saying to the
got a friend in
teacher,
Jesus,
you
miss."
got a friend in Jesus, miss. Is the Lord your shepherd?
I'm not going out with them on.
And you've got a mirror.
Catherine Tate
Problem
was
with
absolute
Lauren.
genius.
Problem with Lauren is she's exactly like half the teenage kids that my sisters teach. But yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I've,
all right. So what about
I've
you,
got a
Clarky?
sentence too. Yeah, so mine's a repeating sentence as well. But so what I would like is for Mr. Winger to be in a field of stinging nettles and thinking as he does that he's gotten away with tricking JC into getting into the pearly gates. I want him to climb the stairway to heaven. And I'm going to assume that it's a long way. I don't really know much about this stuff, but I'm going to assume it's a long way, right? So it's going to take him maybe 23 hours to climb the stairs. And then he'll get to the pearly gates and he'll meet St. Peter, who will say, we never fell for that, mate. And then he'll turn the stairs into like a big slide.
Snakes
so
and
he'll
ladders.
slide all the way back down again. But the last 50 metres is going to be sandpaper, so that he just gets massive grazes as he does the last 50 metres, then lands in the stinging nettles. So he's going to land on the ground, grazed, covered in stinging nettles, and then time's going to reset, and he's going to go, I've got to get out of here, I've got to get to the pearly gates. So he's going to start climbing again in pain, but also knowing that when he gets to the pearly gates, he's tricked JC, all is good. And then he'll spend the next 23 hours climbing those stairs, only to have the same thing happen again. Then he'll slide all the way down again, still with injuries, hit the 50 metres of sandpaper, make them worse, hit the nettles, and then time resets. So he's just going to get worse and worse and worse as time goes on. That's my sentence.
So you basically send him to hell.
Well, yeah, he doesn't even
Just
get
send
there.
him to
Doesn't
hell,
even
then.
need to.
I do think he's got a room reserved there by the sounds of things. He definitely has a reservation
probably.
down there.
Yeah, probably a couple, but that's just before he gets it. Maybe that's till he does his sentence of 25 years twice.
Well, it's
and then
life.
35 years, and then after
Yeah, okay.
that, then he can go to hell.
Okay.
So we can have
Yeah, I think that's quite fair.
85 years of that, and then hell for all eternity.
Yeah, because we've talked about before the time that you're given, like when it extends beyond your actual normal mortality, it's all a bit arbitrary. So, you can't really
Yeah,
serve
yeah.
it
Serve
because
it.
you're dead.
Agreed.
So,
Yeah.
so okay, so that means it's not an arbitrary sentence. Yeah. Okay, I'm good with that.
Yeah. That
And
would
Carla, what about you?
surely.
Okay. Well, because I like to go back to the thing that seems to, define someone.
Matter to him. Yeah.
For him, it felt like there was this opportunity to sort of start afresh as long as he left Judaism and went to Christianity. So I would like to see that whilst serving out his sentence, nobody offered him the lifeline in terms of whether it be Judaism or Christianity or any religion. I don't want him to be able to speak to anybody about anything. So he's left with his own guilt, and he has to deal with that on his own without thinking that he can be forgiven, because he can't. So he will be in prison without access to somebody who could make him feel a bit better or make him feel forgiven. And I'd also like to think that his family, his children and that would not have anything to do with him either. So he was just left on his own to rot with his own decisions that he made, where he wasn't able to try and manipulate anybody else or try and harm anybody else. He's just left with the decisions he made.
Just cut off.
Yeah,
Cut off
cut
for
off.
everyone.
Yeah. No chance
And
of
if
forgiveness
he
from
did-
anybody.
If he did manage to convince himself that whilst he was alone, he'd still been forgiven, how would you remind him that we hadn't actually forgiven him just because he'd talked himself into it?
A good nut punch.
Yeah.
Well done.
I don't know. That wouldn't be enough, really, would it? But
That's a good start.
It'd be a damn good
I
start.
don't know. But if you've got
Yeah,
no
yeah.
audience and he's got no one to share it with, and there's no one who can, slightly make him feel like, he might be redeemed or, forgiven. If there's no audience, I just think that, you're just stuck with your own thoughts, and I think that's probably about the worst thing I could think of.
Maybe he just needs a constant reminder of we still haven't forgiven you in some kind of painful way, or maybe a reminder in his food.
Oh. What were you thinking?
Oh, I wasn't. I was just thinking, I watched something like
You're out of
Wentworth
date.
or
You're out of date,
something.
Baileys.
Yeah, that's right. You can have a nice
Oh, you really know
glass
how to
of
punish
out of
somebody,
date.
don't you?
Yeah, I'm wicked.
This is off.
I
For you, my
I'll tell
date
you
was-
how to
Maybe
make it off.
It wasn't
I'll
refrigerated.
tell you how to make it off. I was trying to make a cocksucking cowboy for the kids.
Now there's a
For the
sentence you
kids.
don't often hear,
It was-
darling.
It was my niece's
I was trying to
6-year-old birthday, and I thought, let's all have cocksucking cowboys.
Oh, don't be ridiculous. She was 11.
They were 18. The kids to me always, but no, it was an
It's all in the
joint
delivery.
18th birthday party, and and I thought, Auntie Caroline and the wild aunt, I'll make them a cocksucking cowboy, and I went into my room and I pulled out the Baileys and I pulled out what said that it was butterscotch schnapps, and I clearly had forgotten that at some point in some moment of badness I had decanted some Madeira into that bottle. So when I poured it into the Baileys, it curdled the Baileys immediately, and I took it out not realising that and gave it to them, and they drank it. And they were like, this doesn't seem right. And
Is it supposed to really taste like a cock-sucking cowboy, Auntie Caroline?
This cowboy's a real cocksucker.
Like, yeah.
Oh, it's very
I don't
chunky.
think he's been very clean. Oh, God.
Yes.
Oh,
That would.
Caroline.
It was a terrible mistake, and they have never let me live it down. But there you go. You could take all the off Baileys that we could ever find and mix it with some Madeira or some equally just thing that's going to curdle it even further, and that's the food that you want to give him.
Right.
Yes.
Because I can tell you from personal experience, it's very unpleasant.
And then there just needs to be a little reminder of not forgiven. So when he drinks it and goes, "Ooh, that's disgusting," not forgiven.
Not forgiven.
Start again.
That's right.
Start convincing yourself again.
Yeah, that was a mistake. All right.
Yes,
good one. Thank you, Carla. That was a good story. Excellent.
Thank you.
And thank you, Clarkie, for the laughs. And, as we say every week, because it's absolutely true, miss you already.
Oh, indeed.
Oh, miss you both,
All right.
lovelies. Thanks for the laughs.
Talk to you soon.
See you soon,
next
guys.
episode.
Cheers.
Okay.
Ciao.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Trial by Wine. You can contact us at trialbywine@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe to Trial by Wine on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. If you'd like to support us, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com, Trial by Wine, or visit our website www.trialbywine.com to donate to us. Your support will help us cover many more cases and apply wacky sentences. We really appreciate you listening and hope you tell everyone about us. Our cover art is by John Christo and music is by Beauchamp from Pixabay.com.